right, you guys, so we are back in Atlanta. That is because I had just made it back from DC, having the most amazing God encounters. And you guys, like, I felt so refreshed. I felt so empowered by God to be able to truly live this life for the first time in a long time. And I got back to Atlanta and I was really like focusing on my school. I wasn't like going out and stuff as much anymore. Like, I really was keeping myself from a lot of those distractions. You have to know what are distractions for you, because I know for me in my journey, like when I would drink and it would lead me to making really bad, poor decisions. When I would go out to the clubs, it would lead to me making really bad, poor decisions. And so you have to talk to God and like find out, like, or even use common sense. Like, when I do this, this ends up happening. And so, like, even if you're not on this like level where you feel like you can really hear from God and stuff like that, like, stop and think, like, when I do X, Z occurs, or Y occurs, or, you know, whatever. So I really started to evaluate what was getting me to a place of making a lot of poor decisions. And I cut out a lot of those things. So I was doing really good. I'm not gonna lie though, there was still this like struggle, because in Maryland, I felt like I had this support system in this community that was helping me to dive into this life with God like I had never knew or experienced before. But in Atlanta, I was kind of like back on my own. Like, I was going to church again and stuff, but I just didn't know how to find the community I needed per se. You know, like I said in the last video, I'd like to say everything went well, but God had to keep chasing your girl. So basically, like, one night I had recommitted to like my celibacy journey. I have a whole nother video that talks about my celibacy journey, so you can check that out. I'll make sure I let you know where to find that. It's on my YouTube channel. I was on my celibacy journey, which again, for me, that was very important for my journey in just getting back to Christ, getting back to who I was created to be. And so I was on this journey, but one night, you know, I was feeling lonely, which is something that happens on a celibacy journey, but I didn't, again, have that community and that support. And so someone that I had been talking to reached out, and I caved and I went over there. And long story short, while I was over there for the reasons I went for, another person, another guy entered the room, and I didn't see them come in, but then I felt someone touching me, and I hopped up. I ran into the bathroom, I closed the door, and I just sat there and I cried and I cried, and I hated that moment. And part of the reason that I felt awful was, one, because it's not okay for people that don't have permission to touch you, to be in your space. And then I also felt awful because I felt like I should never been here in the first place. Like, I knew better than to even be here. Like, why are you even here? Like, I just felt like the enemy keeps setting these traps and I keep walking into them. I went home and everything. That was another turning point in my journey, which is why I mention it, because it definitely caused me to put up a lot more safeguards. It caused me to view men like, wow, like, this is the type of stuff that these dudes do. Like, you know, and then I already had so many weights from different things that had occurred in my past, that it was like, okay, how I'm gonna work through this, you know? After that happened, like, I really became even more closed off, and not in the best way, because it was from like the hurt and stuff, but I started to like really like pull in a lot of things. So it was good that I was pulling in, but it wasn't the right path to pulling in, I guess you could say, because it was from the hurt. I was going to church and stuff still. Like, I stopped taking phone calls. I think too, I started just valuing myself more. Like, valuing my body more, like really just thinking about the concept of what the woman that I wanted to be. And so, you know, I'm reading, I'm praying, and I continue, and I wanted to go back to Maryland. I wanted to go back to the last place where I felt like I knew I heard God, where I felt like I would be able to be planted in community and be able to grow well. Like, I wanted to get back to Maryland. I told my parents, okay, I'm about to graduate, I'm gonna go to Maryland. They did not want to hear that. They wanted me to come back home, but I knew it was an important part of my spiritual journey to go to Maryland. And so this actually led to like one of the first like really challenging, I would say, spiritual tests that I had as a believer, because when it came to like doing the right thing, I normally just like listen to my dad. Like if he said it, okay, that's fine. But this was the first time that I felt like I was fighting to do the right thing, but it wasn't in alignment with what my dad saw for me. But I knew I had to go. And y'all, like, I cried like every night, because for like 2-3 weeks leading up to me making the final decision of what I was gonna do, because it was really, really hard. And I'm so grateful I have a friend named Eve. She helped me journey through this season, and I was like reading in scriptures like, God, like, what do I do? Like, I feel like you're telling me to do this, but how could this be? Like, my dad is not, he didn't hear it. He didn't hear the same thing. And sometimes on your journey, people that you love will not hear the same thing, but there is going to be such a conviction about what needs to happen. You'll know. And so the time came for me to, you know, finally do what I was gonna do. Graduation came, and this is so cool. Part of my testimony, like, I get to graduation and someone came and they gave me $2,500. Actually, they gave me $5,000. First, they gave me $2,500, and they were like, you know, congratulations, you graduated. Boom. I was like, yes, I got the money. I could go up to Maryland. And then they actually gave me another $2,500. And the second $2,500 they gave me was for some work that I did for them. So I'm a writer, I do writing, I'm passionate about it. And I had done some work for them. And at the time, this was months before, at the time when I was working on the project with them, they were like, okay, you know, what is your fee? And I was just like, I really looked up to this person, and still do, but I really looked up to this person, and they were like, you know, what's your fee? And I was like, listen, I have no fee. If there's anything that I can ever sow from my life into you, like, I would never charge you. Like, it's free. But in this time, God led this person to make sure they paid me, I guess. And so they gave me another $2,500. And it's so cool. And I have to pause here because sometimes we think we're sowing seeds and there's no harvest coming from it. But sometimes God is holding that harvest for the right time to release it to us for our benefit. If I had gotten that money, like back when I had first done the work, I probably would have squandered it on drinking, on partying, on whatever. But like, God held that harvest to the time when I needed it and when I would be mature enough to use it appropriately. And so, you know, don't think that you're sowing seeds is in vain, whether it's your time, whether it's your resources, whatever it is. And I had sown that seed and the harvest came at the perfect time. So now I had $5,000 and I put all my stuff in my car. I had a little 2-door Honda, in tears. And I was like, I'm going to Maryland. I was up there for about 3 months. That was 3 of the most transformative months in my life. Like, I feel like I really became saved, born again, a follower of Christ while living in Maryland. And I believe that happened because the community that I was surrounded in, I was just pulled away from distractions, pulled away from people that would so easily just keep seeing me the way I was. I think sometimes We want to go on this journey with God, but we're surrounded by people who keep seeing us as we were. And so it makes it really hard to transform into who God is calling us to be. I just really like buried myself in becoming this new person. And some of y'all need to go into a season of burying. I know you can't really move to a whole new state or whatever, but you got to let some people know, like, don't hit up my phone. Yes, there were people that tried to reach out to me, and I was like, listen, like, I'm on a journey, and I can't. It makes me think of the story of Nehemiah, actually, in the Bible, where he went to go rebuild the walls, and it was like to Tobias and Sanballat or whoever the people showed up, and they were like, Nehemiah, like, come down and talk to us, like, and they were just trying to get him to stop doing his work. And he was like, why should I come down and talk to you? I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. And I think sometimes we will allow ourselves to get so focused on the business that we're building or things that are material that we're building, and we don't have that same tenacity and focus when we are building our lives. But it is a strong foundation of our lives that will allow us to be propelled into more than we could ever build with our own hands. And so some of you have friends that you need to tell, I need space. I need space and I need room to build. I am building my life in this season. I am doing a great work. God is doing a great work in me. And I cannot afford to be out with you drinking, smoking, clubbing. I can't afford to be out with you gossiping, talking about everybody. I can't afford to be out with you doing things that I know are damaging to my destiny. And, I feel like such a conviction even just telling you guys this right now. Like, you guys know the things that are damaging to your destiny, and you genuinely just have to make a choice to be like, you know what? I am at my big grown age. I can't keep throwing my destiny away. And you need to be bold enough to let people know, I need space. You cannot help people when you are still in the same mess with them. So take the space. Let them know. If they get mad, then they get mad. But you're doing a great work and you can't come down. My time in Maryland came to an end because I ended up going to a program, a discipleship training program, and that was God. Somebody blessed me to be able to go and be a part of this program. So I moved to Barbados for 3 months, and I was there, and we would get up, we would read the Bible, like just studying what it meant to become disciples of Christ. And that whole experience and journey is a whole nother video, but yeah, so I was doing that. And then after being in Barbados for 3 months, we went to London, and then we went to Albania, and we ministered to people. We exercised, what it was that we learned. Albania was cold, y'all. It was like 20 degrees, and we didn't have proper heaters, and you couldn't drink the water, so you had to buy the water, but they kept mixing up the drinking water with the non-drinking water. Like, it was too much. And so I headed out. I called my dad, and I was like, Dad, like, I don't want to be a quitter, and I'm trying not to leave, but people are getting sick out here because it's just things are not being appropriately managed, and I feel like I need to come home. And my dad was like, girl, come home. I remember I arrived on Christmas Day, and that was just really special because my mom loves for us to be home for Christmas. And I walked through the door, and I spent half of Christmas in London and the other half of Christmas in Tampa at home. And my mom, my dad, my family was just so happy to see me. I entered into like this really neutral, like, okay, what do I do now? I had this like fire for God and wanting to serve God, but I didn't have a lot of clear direction. So, I was just like, well, an idle mind is a devil workshop, so I'm gonna keep myself in church. And I would say one thing, like, if you're in a season of transition and you don't know what to do, but you're trying to do the right thing, go to church. Go to church, give yourself less time to fall into habits of the past. So I was doing missions at my church, and I was loving doing that. And I went to a mission trip in the Bahamas, and it was great. I loved traveling. I loved doing missions. I've been home for like a little while now. And I remember getting to one trip and I was by myself and I was getting ready to go to bed at night, and I felt lonely again. And I was just like, God, like, I want to live for you. I want to serve you. I'll go anywhere you want me to go. I'll do anything you want me to do. I'll minister to whoever you want me to minister to, but I don't want to do it alone anymore. I wanted to be married. I would say at this point, I have been on a healing restoration journey for about 3 years. Or maybe like 2.5 years. Like, I have been celibate. I have been consistently going to church, like serving, like single, just really like allowing myself to be restored and renewed in Christ, and just getting back to that version of myself that was created and preordained before the foundation of the earth. So I was like, God, like, I'll serve you, I'll do all of these things, but I don't want to be by myself anymore. Like, I want somebody to love and to love me back and to, live life with, live out my calling with. From there, like, I went up to Maryland again. It wasn't as rough of a transition as the first time. It was like, okay, Crystal, we see you're pursuing God. Like, you're trying to just do the right thing. So my parents were much more supportive, the second time, which, not to say they didn't support me the first time, but that support looked different. And people was like, Crystal, how are you gonna meet somebody? How are you ever gonna get married? You need to settle down. And I was like, listen, first and foremost, I'm always gonna do what God telling me to do. And so whoever I marry gonna have to meet me in the midst of me moving, because I'm gonna go where God told me to go. I'm gonna do what God told me to do. Period. And I would definitely say that for anybody that's watching, women, men, whoever, like, if you're in a season where you're like, I really want to meet my husband, the best thing, or I really want to meet my wife, the very best thing you could do is be in pursuit of what God is telling you to do, because it is going to lead you to the space, the place, wherever your spouse is. So that's that. My time in Maryland, that time was very short. I don't know, maybe like a month and a half or so. I didn't even get an apartment. And I had gone to Atlanta for a conference. And when we went to the conference, I was sitting in church and I heard God say, move back to Atlanta. The last time I left Atlanta, I said, I'm never coming back here, because I felt like every time I come to Atlanta, I end up falling into some type of trap. So I didn't want to go back to Atlanta. But God was like, move back to Atlanta. And I know it was his voice telling me that. And God was like, I want you to go to school, like, for your master's. And I'm like, okay. I didn't really have a desire to go back to school. I have a desire to move back to Atlanta, but I know I was hearing the voice of God. So literally, as I'm sitting in the conference, I like pull up schools and I'm just scrolling and I see Mercer popped up. I never even heard of Mercer before, but that's where God highlighted to me. And I'm like, he's like, this is the school. And I'm like, okay. I end up applying to go to school at Mercer, and that is where I met my husband. Long story short, I have a whole nother video on how I met my husband, so you can check that out if you want to. I won't go into details here, but that is how I met my husband. Within a week of God telling me to move back to Atlanta, I went back to Maryland, got all my stuff, told them I was leaving. They're like, why are you leaving? I'm like, this is what God said. I got to do what God said. Within 2 weeks of me moving back, I met my husband. And yeah, like, the rest is history. We met, got engaged, and married in 9 months. So now you guys are all cut up. But yeah, like, it was such a journey. My life has been such a journey. And again, I wanted to just but I wanted to share just these different things. And even then, like, I'm 36 years old, so I'm giving y'all some Cliff Note versions of things that have occurred, journeys I've gone through. But I wanted you guys to know that God will meet you where you are. I wanted you guys to know that no matter what's going on, how far you feel, God is going to pursue you and chase after you. I wanted you guys to know that the enemy is literally out there after your life. And I don't think people even realize, whether you're living for God or not, the enemy is after you. And I say that because in the times where I was trying to do right and live for God, the enemy was after me. Like, just after me to pull me away from God. And in the times where I was like, whatever, I'm not even doing the whole Christian thing, the enemy was still after me, because at that point he was after me to just destroy me completely, crush my spirit, put me under the stronghold of depression, put me under thoughts of suicide. Like, the enemy is not happy with the destruction and chaos he is bringing into your life until you are at the very bottom. Like, period. So sometimes people can think like, oh, this don't pertain to me because I'm not even living for God like that. Yes, it does. The enemy is still after your life. Like, he does not want good things for you. And I think sometimes we have to be mature enough, and we have to recognize, again, even on just like a practical level, like, I don't have the life I want. Like, I'm saying I'm making all these decisions and doing all these things because I'm doing me and I want to be this person. But if you really look at it, like, are you truly happy with your life? And if you're not, that's because you're just doing things and probably being guided by the enemy in a lot of ways. And I don't mean happiness in the sense of everything is always going on your way. I mean happiness in the sense of like, you're making progress towards being the person you know you are called to be. I talk to so many people, so many girls that know, like, man, like, I'm just meant for more. And I'm like, the more that you're seeking, you're not going to find that until you connect with Christ. The more that you're looking for out of life, you're not going to find it in the dates, in the clothes, in the money, in the trips, in the whatever. Like, I've been there, I've done that. I'm telling you, you're not going to find it in those things. You're going to find true fulfillment and happiness in being the person God is calling you to be. And I am so grateful that God pursued me, God chased after me, because, you know, I'm married now, I have 2 kids, my husband is absolutely phenomenal. Like, nothing about the life that I live says that I should deserve to have such an amazing husband. Like, y'all, like, I couldn't ask for a better partner to live life with. And I know even we're in a time where it's like marriage, like, who want to do that? Oh, like, I'm single and I'm doing me and whatever. Like, if you genuinely just want to be single, there's nothing wrong with that. However, don't just say that if that's not like the truth. Like, if you want to be married, if you want a partner to do life with, like, that's okay. Like, you can want that, and it can be great for you. I went through a season where I was just like, I'm never going to get married. Like, I don't even want to deal with that. And I had to come to terms with myself that I said that because I was hurt. Like, there aren't any good men out here. Like, I went through that season. Like, I went through all these different seasons, but I was able to come out of it when I was honest with God and allow him to rebuild my life in the way that he saw fit. And so, you know, like I said, there's so much more that I could say, but in the end of it all, it's funny, my husband was like, so what, why are you sharing? Like, what's bringing this out now? And I don't know. I felt like God told me to. So my hope is that in sharing my journey and sharing my restoration and sharing that even if it only helps a few people to feel better about themselves, to know how to get on track, to know that they are not too far gone, to know that there is a God that still loves them, wants them, cares for them, that they will start to pursue him. There's a God that has a great life that he wants for you. And no matter what you've been going through, no matter what is still available to you, don't fall victim to the things you are susceptible to. I am very mindful as I live my life now of knowing the things that I am susceptible to, because I'm not beyond falling back into a trap if I allow myself to get drawn into things I am susceptible to. And so you also got to know, like, what are things you're susceptible to? I don't let the door, I don't even open the door for certain stuff, because it's like, The enemy just wants a little piece of door, and then he's gonna bust through and bust hell wide open in your life. That's what's gonna happen. So, you know, people say don't burn bridges. Let me tell you, baby, I got the whole box of matches, lit that joint on fire. Like, some bridges need to be burnt. And it needs to be burnt because you have to make a stance about who you are deciding to be. So yeah, so I'm just grateful, I'm thankful, and welcome to my life, I guess. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Lots of things I'm gonna be sharing here on the channel, here on the page, here on the wherever you're watching this. If you want to follow our journey in Johannesburg, you know, I told God I'll go wherever you want me to go. Got us out here in Johannesburg, South Africa. So, you know, and another story for another day. Subscribe, share the journey, share the video definitely with anybody you feel like will be blessed and encouraged, because that is definitely my goal. And until next time.